Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 921 of the Juicebox Podcast. Today I'll be speaking with Liv. She's a young lady who has type 1 diabetes for about a year. She's here to talk about that and a lot more. She's had some mental health issues, a suicide attempt, and we're going to break it all down and chat about it. While you're listening, please remember that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan or becoming bold with insulin. If you like saving money, listen to this. 35% off your entire order at CozyEarth.com with the offer code JUICEBOX at checkout. Cozy Earth has amazing sheets that I sleep on, clothes that I wear, towels that I dry my bottom with. You might like them too. Use the offer code JUICEBOX at checkout at CozyEarth.com to save 35%. If you'd like to save 10% off your first month of therapy at BetterHelp, just go to BetterHelp.com/juicebox. You'll save that 10%. And to get 5 free travel packs and a year's supply of vitamin D for free with your first order of AG1 from Athletic Greens, use my link, athleticgreens.com/juicebox. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by the Omnipod 5. Omnipod.com/juicebox is where you're going to learn more and get started with the Omnipod 5 or the Omnipod DASH. You can wear the exact same insulin pump that Arden does at omnipod.com/juicebox. Are you nervous?
A little bit.
That's okay.
Not
That's
too
probably
nervous,
realistic.
though.
Your voice is being recorded and people are going to listen to it.
No way.
Yeah.
I didn't sign up for this. No, I'm just
Also,
kidding.
there are bugs living on your skin and inside of you too. I don't know if you do that or not.
Oh, wow, that really helps. That just made everything so much
I
better.
want you to be nice and comfortable before we start. You'll introduce yourself any way you want to be known. There's no reason if you do use your last name unless you have a reason to. If we talk about other people in your life, it's fine with me if you use their name. Just please don't get to the end of the recording and think, oh, I really shouldn't have said my aunt's name 3 times.
Right.
Because it creates a hellscape for me over here. Other than that, I honestly don't care what you say.
Okay.
All right. So
Coolio.
if you're ready to go, look at you referencing mid-level rappers from the 90s.
It's my niche.
It's where I live, right there. I'm down with OPP. Let's get going. So, go ahead, just introduce yourself.
All right. My name is Liv without the E. And I got diagnosed with type 1 a year ago tomorrow.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
How are you on the
Craziness.
podcast a year to almost to the day of your diagnosis? Is that on purpose?
No, actually, I was really surprised that you picked that day. It took me a week to realize that that was actually the day before, but yeah, I don't know, just sheer luck.
How old are you?
I am 21.
Wow.
Yeah, I got diabetes for my 21st birthday.
Were you thinking you were going to get beer?
Yeah. But hey, I got both. Don't worry.
You took care of everything?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, so you're going to be 22 tomorrow, and you've had diabetes for a year.
Well, it's not my birthday tomorrow.
Oh, the
It's
anniversary.
in February, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, this month-ish. Whatever.
Close enough.
Who the cares? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Liv, you're making me curse.
I have that effect.
Do a lot of people end up cursing when they're around you?
Yeah. I also just curse really bad, so I think people fall into it, but
I find it makes them comfortable.
yeah.
What's your favorite word?
Chagrin.
Really?
Or my favorite curse word.
Well, chagrin's your favorite word?
Chagrin is my favorite word.
How did that happen?
There's this YouTube artist. His name's Peter Draws, and my brother's name's Peter, so they were like, my brother really liked him for a long time, and I watched his videos, and he's just this really chill, kind of like hippie dude. Mm-hmm. And he would use that word quite often. And every time he said it, it just put a smile on my face.
No. Does he say much to my chagrin?
Yeah,
Yeah.
along those lines.
Along those lines.
Yeah.
We could just talk in small sound bites for the rest of this. So, okay, I guess I did mean, what was your favorite curse word? Like, which
My
one do you
favorite
use
curse
most
word?
frequently?
Probably the F word.
Has to be, right?
Or, I call everyone the B word all the time.
I love how you said you love curse words, but you said the F word and the B word now instead of
Well, am I allowed to curse? I don't know.
I'll just bleep it out. It's fine.
Yeah, I hate the beeps, so I'm gonna save everyone else from that.
You're going to avoid the beeps for them?
Yeah.
Well, that's very considerate of you.
I know. I'm so nice.
What about the people who want the curses and right now are thinking, much to my chagrin, Liv didn't curse the entire time?
Well, that's a bummer for them. They'll have to live with it.
Do we have to look up that phrase so people understand it?
I mean, it's kind of like dismay. Is how I describe it to people who don't understand what that means. Much to my chagrin, it's like much to my dismay.
Distress or embarrassment at having failed or being humiliated. That's the noun. Jeff,
my favorite word.
Jeff, much to his chagrin, wasn't invited.
Mm-hmm.
So wait, what did you say? How do you tell people?
Dismay.
Yeah, I mean, all right.
It's a more lighter version.
I think embarrassment or distress.
Yeah.
And then as a verb, you could say he was chagrined when his friend poured scorn on him. Who speaks like this? Poured scorn on him? Did I just click on the internet from the 10s? Like, what just happened there? Mm-hmm. What am I? Is this a Netflix series where everybody's British?
Apparently.
Oh, please. All right. So you like chagrin.
I like chagrin.
Cursing, you like to say fuck. You call people bitches.
Yes.
Like, yo, what are you bitches doing?
Not in the cool way.
Not in the cool in like the angry way? Like
more like when people do something I don't like, I jokingly call them a bitch.
Like if I came up to your car in traffic and tried to wash your windshield like it was 1990, and
I'd be like, bitch, get off.
You'd be like, bitch, get away from me.
Yeah.
But you don't look at your friends and be like, bitch, what are we doing tonight?
No.
You ever call your friends hookers?
No, I call them cunts.
Oh my God. What are you trying to make sure I have a good time? Thank you very much.
Yes.
Okay.
They deserve it.
Yeah, I sometimes I call my daughter and her friends hookers. I'm like,
wow,
I'm like, what are you hookers up to tonight?
Yeah, that's a line I would not cross.
I assume they know I'm kidding.
I hope so.
I mean, they come back to the house, so nobody's paying them, so I assume they're comfortable. I mean, they've been here their whole life. So, okay. All right, so you call your friends.
Yeah.
Are you jealous of the like Irish and British type people who use that word as a friendly word?
Yes. If it Ricky Gervais is my hero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. All right.
Facts.
Why are you on this podcast? You got diabetes a year ago, but what made you want to do this?
So the original reason I wrote is I had a conversation with my mom about diabetes, and I just decided that I had a perspective I thought someone might want to hear, even if it was just one person.
Mm-hmm.
Because I come from a history of some very poor mental health. And so my diabetes diagnosis was like a very small thing in the grand scheme of my life.
So your mental health stuff, has it been around longer?
Yeah. I'd say since I was about like 11, it started getting really bad. I had bad depression and anxiety. I started going to therapy. Mm-hmm. And it just got progressively worse through middle school. And And during my 8th grade year, I attempted suicide and ended up in a institution for a while. Ended up on medication. Just a lot of rocky roads.
Yeah.
For the next until now.
Until now. Do you have any brothers or sisters?
I have an older brother.
Are your parents together?
Yes, they are.
Just painting a picture. I don't actually care if they're together or not. I could just as easily ask you if you have a pet. But
yeah, I have a dog.
Oh, see?
I have 2, actually.
2 dogs.
I have one in Colorado and one here. Long story.
I was going to say, you don't like to let them live together?
Oh, they would be fine, but yeah, I'm not taking the one dog out of his super happy environment.
Okay. All right. I'm not going to argue with you.
Yeah.
For context, I guess, I don't understand any of this. You understand contextually, I'm at a loss here. So what creates a scenario where you think that taking your life is the way to go?
Okay, yeah. So I have learned from listening to your podcast for a while that, yeah, you seem to be interested in the mental health stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's just spending so long honestly believing that your life is worth nothing, that it just gets to a point that it's like just a fact, and it's just when. It's not a question of if you're going to, but when. So getting to that point, it does a lot to your mind, and like getting out of it, I'd say, is the same long, hard journey of, you spend so long convincing yourself that your life like is worth living,
mm-hmm.
that you find every obstacle after that is just so small in comparison.
So
I'm
sorry, because
it takes so much to convince yourself that like it's worth continuing on.
Yeah. So does this just come over you in your recollection? Like, is there just a day or a week or a month where everything started seeming darker than it did prior?
It was definitely a progression. I think for a long time, I didn't even know I was depressed because I was just so focused on everyone else. I'm very empathetic. So all I cared about was, how everyone else was doing, and didn't really pay attention until I took a test at my therapist's office that was like the depression scale thing.
Mm-hmm.
And was like a 90 or something, and she called my mom that night, and then the next night I ended up in the hospital. So it was just kind of all happened at once, but at the same time it was like pretty bad for a long time.
Okay. Did you do other things, outward things, before the attempt? Did you cut or try drugs or anything like that?
For a while. Never done drugs, but yeah, had a history of self-harm.
Okay. Where does the relief come from that?
Have you ever had something just so horrible happen that you don't know how to, like, what to do with yourself, and you just end up like crying or
mm-hmm.
watching a show or whatever? Pretty much what self-harm does for you is it gives you that outlet of it all goes into that. And then once you do it, you can kind of move on, and you don't have that overwhelming feeling of it's just too much to handle, too much to deal with.
Is it a case of when your mind gets on a path that you can't pull it back off of it?
I mean, it's an addiction. So once you start, it just becomes the go-to. Like for alcoholics, it would be drinking, but for people who self-harm, it would be self-harming.
So something happens in your life, or something is said, or whatever happens, a trigger comes up and you start moving into a negative space in your head. There's no ability to just say, oh, well, this is bad, but I mean, this isn't everything. I'll leave this here and go back to my life. Instead, it's like getting pulled down in a black hole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's a lot easier when you're, a teenager, and it really does feel like your whole life,
Sure. Yeah. Were you having trouble, like exterior trouble at home? Were you being like harmed? Were people at school picking on you, or is there anything like that?
I had some issues with my brother that were really tricky. He had a hard time when he was younger, and I think his way of coping it when he got older was kind of taking some of that out on me. And
you kind of couldn't take it.
Yeah, it was just a lot. Like when, if you're bullied at school, you can just go home. But if you're bullied at home, you have nowhere to go.
Right. Okay.
And so, yeah.
What's the age difference?
He's 2.5 years older than me.
Okay.
And we're great now for context. We're amazing.
Yeah.
My brother's the best.
I wouldn't imagine you'd be on here saying it if you were like,
yeah,
still within the problem. So,
yeah.
But can you imagine an 11-year-old who could have taken your brother's crap? Were you just not the right person for that, to be in that situation? Or do you think it would have run most people over?
I think it would have definitely hit most people. I mean, my friends would come over and see some of his stuff, and they would leave crying. And I'm like, see, you get to go home. I don't get to go home.
Okay. All right.
Somewhere else. But yeah, I don't think it was like I'm just a little weakling.
No, and I didn't mean to. I didn't.
Well, no, I know. Yeah.
No, I was just wondering, were you on the precipice of a break to begin with, and he came behind you and shoved you over, or was it really that?
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it was a mix for sure.
Okay.
It definitely wasn't all him, but I think not having a safe space at home was
tough.
Like just made it that much worse.
Gotcha. Would you? I'm so sorry to ask you this. Would you consider your attempt like it would have worked if somebody didn't stop you, or were you looking for help?
I think for the most part, I was looking for help, and I just didn't know what else to do. But if it continued in that direction, I honestly believe that I would not be here today.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So what turns things around? I mean, obviously this gets attention, and people are like, "Oh, Liv has problems we weren't aware of," or we didn't understand the severity of it. So then, what happens after that helps you move in another direction?
That's the hardest part for me is explaining to other people how they can get through it, because it's a choice. It is a choice, and if you don't choose that you want better, you will never make it there. That's what I've learned from my years of dealing with this. But I think for me, I spent so long just really wanting to get to what I had hoped my life would be. And I didn't want to give up on it. I just didn't believe it would ever be possible. And through seeing other people make it out of their stuff, and I did so much therapy, like 9 hours a week at one point, that when you hear people drill into you enough times, like that you need to make choices to get your life where you want it to be. I just decided to give it a try, because when you're that depressed and in that much despair, it's really like you feel like you've done everything and nothing has worked. But when you have so many people telling you that you haven't tried everything, like you feel kind of silly. And you can either choose not to go down that route and just convince yourself you've done everything, or you can actually try every single thing that people give to you. And my mom is my hero. She came from a really hard background, and her whole thing is like, she is the most determined person I've ever met.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think a lot of that I can kind of take from my mom and be like, I just didn't, I didn't want to quit.
Yeah.
And this time, with all the help that I had, I was able to reach small goals and slowly progress forward. And you just keep doing that until one day you look around and you're like, that life that I wanted to have and I just felt like I couldn't, I'm living it.
Yeah. When something goes poorly now for you, or someone is impacting you in a detrimental way, are you able to reframe it? Do you walk away from it? How do you stop that process?
Yeah. I would say at this point, it's impossible for me to get back to as low as I was with all the knowledge that I have. I literally can't go there again.
Mm-hmm.
I use every skill that I have ingrained in myself that now it's just a habit. I cry, I take a break, I talk to someone, I watch a show for a week long, like whatever it is I need to get through, I know there is a healthy option.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
Really.
I'm very proud of myself. I can definitely say I earned it.
Yeah, no kidding. There was a weird noise behind you just now, but I think it's gone. Did an electronic bug fly past your head by any chance?
I have a lot of bracelets that might be.
I don't think it was that. It's okay.
No.
Well,
Okay.
I mean, it definitely sounds like you worked incredibly hard to be happy.
Yeah.
It's funny, as you're discussing this, I almost stopped myself from saying this, but as you're describing the process you went through, I thought that is so similar to getting diabetes and deciding to live with it better.
That's exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
When I got diabetes, a lot of it was just laughing about it to my mom, because I was like, this is so small compared to what I've already gone through.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like a lesser version to me. I know not to everyone.
Sure.
Diabetes is no small thing, but like in my life experiences, it's not the worst thing that's ever happened to me. And it's just, you either get to choose to get to a point where your habit is having a healthy blood sugar, or you can fight it and struggle with it for a long time until maybe you realize there's a better way to do it, or I need to seek help to have better blood sugars. It's just,
yeah,
it's how much you put into it, you get out.
Where you got me was about the idea of not knowing what to do, but there being something, and being able to talk to another person, have them say to you, look, you might not know the next step, but here are 5 things you could try, and then be willing to try those things.
Yeah.
Yeah. That part kind of really spoke to me.
And I feel like it's where it's hard with diabetes is like, there are so many things you can try, and it might take so long for you to find the things that work.
Yeah.
Because there's so many variables, but the benefit of that is there's always more to try.
Yeah. And it's why I serve this some of the series forward the way I do, because I don't want you to have to, like, some of the things are just going to take repetition and experience and stuff like that. But someone can tell you that, the fat in your French fries makes your blood sugar high 90 minutes after you eat them. Like that's okay if somebody tells you that. Having to eat, having to eat French fries 27 times before you go, you know what, I'm seeing a pattern here.
Yeah.
And not to think that the pattern is not impactable too. Like it's important. And even, again, it's what you were sort of talking about. Like there's a way to live where you don't feel like that. And just because you feel like that now doesn't mean you can't impact it and change it and turn it into something else.
I feel like a huge part of what really kind of screws people over is what they get told at diagnosis is so impactful. And I definitely lucked out. I got set up for success. I mean, I can tell you a little bit about what happened.
Yeah.
I was feeling terrible for months, super tired. But I just thought I was depressed. And I have thyroid in the family, thyroid issues all the way down my mom's side, hypothyroidism. So I knew I had hypothyroidism actually when I got hospitalized from the mental health stuff because they tested it and they were like, this might be contributing to your depression. So I started taking thyroid medication way back when.
I asked ChatGPT to write me an ad for the Omnipod 5, and it tells me, it even puts in where I'm supposed to put music. This is interesting. Here's what I'm supposed to say. This episode is brought to you by Omnipod, makers of the Omnipod 5 insulin pump. If you're living with diabetes, managing your insulin levels is a crucial part of your daily routine. That's why Omnipod has designed the Omnipod 5, a device that's transforming the way people with diabetes live their lives. Boy, this isn't bad. I'm sorry, back to the deep voice. The Omnipod 5 is a tubeless wearable insulin pump that adapts to your lifestyle. It's discreet, waterproof, and designed for ultimate comfort. The state-of-the-art pump automatically adjusts insulin delivery based on your glucose levels and trends, taking the guesswork out of diabetes management. Well, this is good. It should say when used with a Dexcom G6. Oh my gosh, safety is always a priority. But it's time to experience the freedom and flexibility that comes with the Omnipod 5 insulin pump. Visit omnipod.com/juicebox to learn more and take the first step towards a better life with diabetes. That's omnipod.com/juicebox. Make the switch to Omnipod 5 and discover the difference for yourself. That's amazing. The machines are taking over, people. That's pretty cool, huh? Anyway, omnipod.com/juicebox. Check out the Omnipod 5 if you want that algorithm with the Dexcom G6, or if you want the Omnipod DASH and you're not looking for the algorithm, you can get started with that as well at my link. When you use the links, you're supporting the show. Those links are available at juiceboxpodcast.com by typing them into a browser or in the show notes of the podcast player you're listening to now. Now, let me say, just write me an ad for Athletic Greens. Hold on a second. I might be onto something here.
So I just thought my thyroid was off because I was feeling so tight. You know, I know the thyroid symptoms.
Yeah.
And so I went, it was my first year at college in Portland. I was living in a dorm and I went home for winter break and went to the doctor, and you know, she sent me home. She was like, your thyroid's fine. And I was like, okay, it's just in my head. I'm crazy. Went back to college and it started getting worse. And I, you know, would call my mom and I'm like, I don't feel good. And she's like, go to the clinic. And I'm like, I don't want to. So I never went. I'm stubborn. And I honestly thought in my head that it was something with my mental health and they weren't going to be able to help me and I needed to figure it out for myself.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of taking it as it came. But at one point I wasn't going to class anymore. And the most I could do in a day was go down from my dorm to the little Stop and Shop. Mm-hmm. And get some food and go back up. And then I had to sleep for the rest of the 24 hours. Like, that is the most I could do in a day. I was drinking more than I ever thought I could. And in my head, I was like, oh, look at me, I'm hydrating. Silly live.
I'm going to look terrific when this is over. My skin's going to be clear. And
yeah, I was like, I'm so healthy drinking all this water.
I'm on the health train now, baby. I can't get the inside of my head looking right, but I'm going to get the outside straight.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, that sucks.
And then last year, and this year, it was my roommate's birthday. I love my roommate. She was amazing. So I was, being the awesome person I am, wanted to celebrate with her and get her a gift and all this stuff. And I was struggling so hard to wrap her gift. And I was going to make her a cake and I fell asleep, too tired. So we went to her boyfriend's dorm and everyone was partying and having cake. And I could barely walk. I was sitting on the couch falling asleep and everyone's like, Liv, are you okay? And I was like, I'm fine. I just need a nap. Like, leave me alone. Because I really didn't want to like take away from her birthday. So I left early. It was like half a block walk to my dorm. So I was walking so slow in heels, falling over. I was like, everyone's gonna think I'm drunk, but I'm not. I couldn't have any of the cake because I was just feeling ill. And I finally get back to my dorm and I'm laying in the bed with, my shoes on and everything. And I'm like, all right, I'll change my shoes and call 911 in a minute. That's literally what went through my head is I'll call the ambulance. So I'll change my shoes in just a second. But I fell asleep because I was kaput.
Wow.
So I wake up the next morning and I call my mom and I'm like, hey, I was gonna call the ambulance last night, but like I'm too tired. I just don't think that'll work. And she's like, obviously is like, what the heck are you talking about? Like she did not know it had gotten to that point.
Yeah.
And like what the heck was going on. So she called my roommate who was still over at her boyfriend's and was like, you need to bring Liv to the hospital.
She's like, it's my birthday.
I know. And the whole time I'm like, this is such an overreaction. Whatever. So I have my mom write out all the symptoms I'm having so I can show the people so I don't have to talk because I can barely get a sentence out. And so we get to the hospital and COVID's still pretty prevalent, of course. And so the hospital's busy. And then I end up waiting in there for 5 hours. And the whole time I'm on the phone with my mom. And all I remember from that is being so thirsty in the waiting room. And I'm on the phone with her and I'm talking to her about if I should go to the vending machine and get a water or not, because I don't think I have enough energy to make it to the vending machine.
Yeah.
And like, that was my idea of what 5 hours was just being so thirsty. That's all I could think about.
But you didn't have enough energy to do anything about it.
Yeah. And I'm just sitting there being miserable and really wanting juice. I really wanted juice.
Were they able to diagnose you in the emergency room?
So when they triaged me, I was about halfway through the 5 hours. So I don't really know I don't think they did. Otherwise, they probably would have brought me back. Mm-hmm. But once they finally did, it was very immediate. They're like, I think, you're diabetic. Which I was in absolute denial about because as one of the many people who are so ignorant, I was like, there's only one kind of diabetes and I don't have that. So yeah, I can't be diabetes. Yeah. Like try
I have
again.
The tired thing. I could be depressed. Yeah. I could be like, did you have depression in college at that point or had you managed yourself? Like, how do you think of it after your, you know what I mean? Like after your attempt and your move forward, is there a time where you see yourself as living not as a depressed person in your teens?
No, I always have depression. It's just varying degrees.
Okay.
And I get worse kind of in the holidays. So I figured, it's still kind of the holidays, right? Maybe I'm just big sad. Maybe I just don't like Portland, which I didn't. But I had convinced myself that I was just sad and depressed.
Mm-hmm.
Because that felt like the only option.
Had you ever felt like that prior? I mean, looking back, I guess no, but you couldn't discern it at the time, right?
I think it was mostly just the fact that my brain couldn't function, that it was like,
You can't even
it just
save
went with
yourself.
the simplest answer because
Yeah.
it was like, I don't have enough energy to go anywhere else.
So similarly to if your brain said to you, look, if we could find a Phillips head screwdriver right now, this would all go away. And you'd sit in the chair going,
Yeah.
I can't do that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. And I was like, my thought was it will pass. Like it will get better. I just need to wait it out,
Yeah.
which obviously was just shooting myself in the foot, but hindsight's 2020.
Well, so far, what I've learned is you can't trust kids at a party at a college, because a person your age who's at a party who's like, I have to nappy now. Like, how did someone not go, hey, Liv might not be okay?
Because I think it was the thing of like, kind of everyone knew me as like, I'm not a huge partier. Like, I'll have fun sometimes, but I'm not, by no means am I the party girl.
Okay.
So it wasn't weird for me to like go just chill on my own. And at the time, most of the friends I had made met me when I assume I was already starting like the pre-diabetes thing. So they already knew me as like a tired person. I like to nap. I like water. So really the only people who like knew that might not be like Liv were my roommate. And she was checking in on me, but I made it pretty clear to her I didn't want help.
Everyone else already saw you as a sleepy camel.
Yeah, that's just who I was.
Right. She's full of water and taking a nap.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that maybe I was just sick because they hadn't seen me in a week. They were like, oh, she's just getting over something.
Gotcha. So now you're away at college, or are you local at college?
I'm in a different state.
Wait, did your mom come?
So on the phone in the waiting room for the 5 hours, my mom's packing a bag. And I'm like, you don't need to fly out. This is ridiculous, whatever. And she's like, no, I'm going to fly out. I'm packing a bag right now. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm fine. But my dad was amazing and was able to get her out that next morning.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time I was allowed to see people, she was there. And that was a lifesaver. Do
you feel when you're given the so you were given the diagnosis on your own? You were by yourself?
Well, she was on, I had an AirPod in with her on the phone.
Oh, okay.
but yes, I was
physically alone. And do you have to use the tools you learned in therapy in that moment?
Not at all.
You're just so beat up.
I was so out of it. I was
care.
Like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, that's fine.
I don't even know what that means, but sure, I'll take it.
Whatever. Is this going to help?
Yeah. I was pretty much like, I'm dying. So whatever you need to say, that's cool.
Yeah. Can I ask you, when you look back,
mm-hmm.
and I know that what you talked about earlier happened when you were much younger, but when you see yourself as in a scenario in a hospital where you could have died, do you see your life as valuable then? And like, oh no, I don't.
Oh, absolutely.
I do not want this to happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Pretty much ever since that turn in my mind when I was much younger.
You just haven't felt that way again.
Is anything to stay alive.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of what you have to do. You have to convince yourself to drink water because your body's worth keeping alive.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that point, it's like, hell yeah, I want to be alive. Even though my life isn't great right now because I'm sleeping all the time and whatever.
I'm very tired.
It's still worth living, and like all my people,
Yeah. No, it's just interesting to hear somebody talk about being on two different sides of that spectrum in the same 10-year period.
For sure. Yeah, it's definitely night and day. I'm sure if it had happened, I tell my mom this a lot. I'm like, thank God I was not diagnosed as a teenager. I don't know what would have happened, but I think it would have been a thing of like, I'm fighting the diabetes, and that's my nightmare. I'm like, I don't want to fight with it.
Yeah.
I just want to coexist and move on.
Can I tell you a secret?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you wonder how you got on the podcast so quickly?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because the schedule is like, I saw somebody for
I
context.
thought you meant January 2024.
Yeah. So here's what happened. It's January 2023 right now. And I don't have a podcast recording slot till November. Like I looked at my calendar this morning and it made me, I was upset.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, I'm going to die trying to make this podcast for sure. So, but you mentioned the depression and other things in your note. And earlier, I forget exactly when it was. It's been, I'll find out. Early in November. Earlier in November, I got an email from a person I don't know. And this gentleman was telling me that his daughter passed away and she wanted any donations that were made in her memory to go to me.
Wow.
And I couldn't wrap my head around what he was saying.
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, I don't understand. Like how would that be? You know, so he left his phone number and I said, can I just call you? And we spoke on the phone and he said, you know, your podcast means a lot to my daughter. And then he stopped himself and he said, meant a lot. And then he said, I'm sorry, she just passed away today.
Oh my God.
And I was like, what is, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, what? I'm trying to put all the pieces together in my head. I'm like, a guy emailed me today to ask how to make donations to the podcast in memory of his daughter who has only been gone for a few hours. Like, why? None of this is adding up. Like, none of it made any sense to me. So I spoke to him for a minute. Now I realize I'm speaking with somebody who's like lost a person, their daughter in this day, you know? And I'm piecing it together and I get off the phone and I say to my wife, I think this man's daughter committed suicide. Because why would he know about, she wasn't sick. And I'm like picking through what he said and everything. And then it occurred to me, I'm in someone's suicide note.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh God, like I don't have a way to know what to do about that, you know? And so I got your note and I was like, I'm not ended up in somebody else's suicide note. This girl's coming on right now and telling her story because the person I'm talking about, Jenna, she was on my schedule.
Yeah, I heard about that.
I just didn't know. I swear to you, I got your note and I was like, we can talk right now. I was like, I'm not getting another call like this in my lifetime. I don't like, you know what I mean?
It is too much. Like, I honestly, it is too much. About a month after I was out of the hospital from my attempt, my lifelong childhood friend, her brother commit suicide, who lived down the street. And my mom, being unable to deal with my stuff, obviously, because it's your kid, seeing that happen, like, it's hard to have words for that. But when you have people in your life, even just by a small relation, take their lives, it's too big for words, kind of what that means and how that feels.
No, I don't even know. I mean, obviously I don't even know how he was functioning. And then the next day I'm sitting at my desk working and I'm really like, I was stunned. Like I wasn't okay for a couple of days. Right. And it's not like she said, you know, I'm doing this because of Scott. Like she was saying she was saying that that the podcast had made like a lot of time in her life very happy and easier and everything. She had a lot of different medical issues. And but I still like, I'm like, I can't take money from this. Like, first of all, I'm not a charity. You know, that's the first thing. And secondly, if I took the money, all I would do is like, I don't know, buy microphones with it and stuff like that. I'm like,
Right.
So I was thinking about, where do I direct him? Because how do I honor what she wanted? But
Right.
because I'm saying no to it. Like she didn't care. Like she wanted it to go to me. And
Yeah.
I felt like I couldn't accept that. And so I eventually gave the family Diabetes Sisters, We Are Diabetes, and Touched by Type 1 as valuable places to make donations to. But
I think it's more of a thing of like, when you're in that kind of headspace, the things that bring you joy are very few and far between.
mm-hmm.
And the people who may represent those things are kind of heroes to you in a way that they'll never know. Like certain singers, you might feel such a deep connection with, and they might never know about you.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I am in no place to put words in her mouth, but I think that you, for a lot of people, are just someone who's on their side when they don't really have anybody, because a lot of people don't tell their friends about type 1 and they might not have a community. And so when you are on here talking to all these type 1s, all these people who are experiencing similar things to them, and they listen to you, like it's a connection that they really need that they don't have anywhere else.
Yeah. I just wish I wish she could have come on and told me that, and we had a scheduled time that I think if I'm remembering right, she backed out of, and then I didn't hear from her for a while. And then, I heard from her again and we rescheduled it again. I think part of that was part of some of the things she was struggling with as well. But the next day, as I was quite literally sitting here, just more than a little stunned, trying to figure out what to do as far as her request, my phone rang, and it was a number I didn't recognize. I picked it up, and there's a woman crying on the phone. Like she didn't even say hello. She was just crying, and she was doing dishes. And I could hear a woman crying, doing dishes, who was not saying hello to me, but who had called me. And I was like, hello? And then I realized eventually I'm now talking to this girl's mother, who was just blindly reaching out to me, trying to figure out like the days of her daughter's life leading up to this.
Yeah.
And she said that it wasn't a surprise, that she had struggled for a very long time. But I told her, I'm like, I have some correspondence that I've done with your daughter over the years. I can find it. And she was just so grateful. She's like, would you share that with me? And I was like, yeah, sure. So I sent it to her, and she said, I would maybe like to come on the podcast one day and talk about her. And I said, yeah, that's fine. I said, at any time that you think is appropriate, would you reach out to me and we'll figure it out. And she said, I don't think I'm going to remember today. Can you email me? And we talked a little longer and got off the phone. But it was just, I don't know. Like I was drawn into it suddenly. I didn't understand my place in it. And yet I seem to have a larger place in it than I would have imagined.
Right.
But it's just, anyway, that's a very sad way of telling you that's why you got on the podcast so quickly, because I didn't know I don't know who you are. And I look back at her correspondence with me, and nothing I read there told me that this was going to end up being an eventuality.
See, I've been told, and I have found that in my life, especially people have told me that I'm very good at hiding when I am very bad.
Mhm.
And I think you just get so used to it that you become a professional at seeming like everything is fine because you can't tell just everybody everything that's happening with you. And because it's so much, you have to pretend in such a big way that you're okay
Mhm.
that you just get so used to it. And you're just so good at it that you eventually forget to tell people when you're having a hard time.
Yeah. That's such
And
a scary thought as a parent or as somebody who, anybody who cares about somebody, because I imagine that that's not just true for this big topic. I bet you it's true for everything,
yeah,
you know?
it's, yeah,
You just wonder,
it's
like,
hard.
you looking people in the face and they're saying something and, you know, you would do anything for them, but you don't know what anything is. You don't know what it is they need, and they're not going to tell you what they need. And for most things in life, people are going to get through it okay.
Yeah.
But I don't
I
know.
think my mom had kind of one of those hard realizations when I was in IOP. It's intensive outpatient.
Hmm.
It's 9 hours a week. And it's a group where you go with other, kids like adolescents that were in the hospital for whatever their reason was, typically the same as mine. And the parents would come to some of it to learn and, experience. And at one point, my mom left with me and she goes, some of the kids in that room aren't going to make it. And I was like, I know. And it's just so hard because you're sitting next to these kids and their parents, and a lot of them, seem like they are trying to get better, and some of them don't.
Yeah.
They seem like they're done. And I think that's kind of when she realized that, like, what helped her kind of get to the point of knowing as a fact, like, if that person doesn't want to be here anymore, they won't be. They'll find a way.
Yeah.
And that's really hard. I can't even fathom as a parent because that's your kid, your loved one, your friend, your whatever. And like if they've made that choice, like you can't, as much as you feel like you want should have done more, could have done more, anything, you can't. It's their decision. I can say that because I've been there.
Right.
It was no one's choice but my own.
Yeah.
I wouldn't blame anyone for what I did other than myself. And,
Well, you know,
you
the
know,
irony, of course, is that it's the finality of the action that makes
yeah,
it what it is. Because what you just described, you know, I have a child, they're on a path, they're going to do what they're going to do. Like in almost any other part of life, that's fine.
yeah,
You know what I mean? It becomes not fine when it's you being alive anymore at the end of it,
yeah.
or you being a heroin addict at the end of it, or, you know, like
Something
yeah,
that's like
yeah,
irreversible.
yeah, just
Yeah,
something that gets to the point where you're like, wow, I've crossed a line that there's no coming back from.
yeah.
And other than that, it's actually a fine way to let people live.
It's
It's
growing up.
so bizarre, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so when that's the case, how are you supposed to know as a person on the outside that this isn't just a thing that somebody needs to go through? You know what I mean? Like, how do you know when
Yeah.
to, even when you can see it, how do you know when to involve yourself? How do you know when to step back? How do you, I'll tell you right now, having children is a huge mistake. I'm just going to say it's just, you're just attached to a person that you care about more than anything else. And everything they do is, beyond your control. And you get,
I don't ever plan on doing it. I'll
you
tell you
get confused in
that.
the beginning when they're
Yeah.
little, thinking you have some, like, you hold some sway over them, right?
It's such a trick.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
real. They just need your credit
No.
card. That's it. And your
Mhm.
car, a
See, that
little
was
food.
hard for my mom when I got diagnosed, right? Because I'm 21.
Mhm.
Well, I was 20 at the time, but like I've moved out. I'm going to college. I'm, supporting myself as an adult. I make myself food. I
Gotten
drink
through a
so much
lot
water.
already. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I'm very mature for my age. Like, she was ready to watch me fly away.
Mm,
But then she gets dragged back down into this. You need to watch her blood sugar 24/7. She
mm,
could go into a coma at night. Make sure you know what she's eating. And like the people at the hospital, there were two groups. There was the group that was like, we're going to deal with this how we deal with anyone who gets diagnosed, which is clearly they were used to kids. So they were like, the parent needs to be the hawk, blah,
mm-hmm.
blah, 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 blah. And then there was Vivian, my diabetes educator, my hero. She had type 1. She came in there. She calmed my mom down, which is a feat I can't express, but she gave her hope that like my life wasn't going to be completely different. And she was like trying to give me more independence, like talking about insulin to carb ratios, which the other doctors were like, no, we're doing meal-based bolus. But Vivian was like, I have type 1, I live with it, it's not as big a deal as they're making it, whatever.
Gave you
And
a little hope.
a little hope, a
yeah.
little, for me, definitely a sense, because I'm very independent, like horribly so.
No, but I would imagine your perspective is different. I mean, you gave it to yourself almost, but your perspective is different than those around you at your age.
Yeah, and gave like a little more control back to me, which was really nice. But,
right.
My mom's sitting there like, I've just let you go, but now I'm supposed to be like this person.
Back
Sorry about the sirens.
Oh, are you breaking a law? What's going on?
I live in Seattle, so stuff happens.
Like when hippies take over a block?
Yes. Yeah. But now she's in this position where she doesn't know how involved to be.
Yeah.
Again, she's already done this with the depression and she's had to find her place. But now this is different because this is medical.
Mm-hmm.
And there are more clear roles, but there also aren't. And we just don't know where we fit into the whole thing. And after diagnosis, I decided I didn't want to do college that quarter, obviously, because I needed to, readjust and figure it out. And so we decided to move all my stuff back home. So we road tripped from Seattle to Colorado 2 days after I got out of the hospital. That was very interesting. They had me on 64 units of Lantus, which...
hey, wait a minute. I know what you look like. That seems like a lot.
If I took that now, I would probably die.
Well, yeah.
They were like, oh, you'll be fine. Just take this and, you'll meet with your person in Colorado. And I was like, oh, that sounds great. It was not great.
No, I bet it wasn't.
It was not great at all. The first low blood sugar I ever had, which I remember because, I'm 20, diagnosed a year ago, was in the car in the first 20 minutes of our drive.
Everything's going to be fine. Here we go. I'm dizzy and sweating.
She wouldn't let me drive, of course. Because she was very worried about me. She's like, you put your blood sugar up on the dash so we can see it the whole time. And I'm like, that sounds good. And, I'm starting to get a little dizzy and I'm like, this is weird. And she pulls the car over, gets the whole box of Capri Sun, we're downing juices. And for the rest of I think it was 2 or 3 weeks. No, it must have been at least a month. I was having at least 10 juices a day, at least.
Well, yeah, because that's way too much insulin for you, I would think.
But what's funny is I found your podcast 2 days after I got out of the hospital, because that's just me trying to get all my resources,
right? As
I've learned. And yours is obviously the most popular type 1 podcast. And I was like, all right, this dude sounds chill. And I'm listening to your podcast and I'm like, Mom, I just got to take more insulin for my meals. Like, this is how you do it. You beat that blood sugar down. not knowing the whole thing of like you're taking at least 4 times more basal than you should be
Already, yeah.
already. So uh we're driving back and I'm trying to like start being a diabetes ninja or whatever. And my blood sugar is like, oh no, you don't. You get juice is your new life. So I thought that that was just like my lifestyle for a while
Yeah.
until I went in and they were like, you can change this. We're going to change it now a lot. And I was like, oh, coolio.
A lot.
So,
Like, what do you weigh? 120 pounds? I don't know how tall you are. I'm just 30. Who cares?
I'm
Like,
5'9".
oh, okay. So you're
I'm
more
really
like
tall,
140-ish in that space?
No. I'm like Viking sized.
Oh, you're okay.
More than that,
But still,
for sure.
forget it. It doesn't
I
matter.
still take a lot less
Yeah.
than that.
Yeah. Let me say this. If you weighed 200 pounds, I don't think you would use 64 units of
Let's just say
Yeah.
I'm on the Omnipod 5.
right.
My total daily insulin is usually around 64 units.
Yeah, that's
So
with your boluses
that's
and your
both,
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, I'm sorry, I don't care
So-
how much you weigh. I'm just saying, like, it's way off. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
it was like, I mean, but for being in DKA, obviously, like, I get it. For the first bit, you need to take more. But I'm like, they sent us knowing we were driving
yeah,
on that much without telling us if she's going low a lot, don't do as much Lantus. Like, they didn't tell us we could do that.
sure.
So it was, a headache, but with everything else, I would say I was set up for success. They gave us packets. I had like 4 days of training with Vivian, and she was amazing. And I learned, all the things. And then because I found your podcast so soon, I didn't have to sit in that space of like not knowing what the possibilities were.
hmm
Like, do I have to be this strict? Do I have to whatever? I don't have to do anything. I can do it however I want to do it as
Right.
long as I don't die. So, and then going to Colorado, I'm sure you've heard of the Barbara Davis Center. You interviewed someone from there.
Sure.
My endo works there. He's a type 1 and he is very, very strict. Like, one lifesaver brings my blood sugar up 10 points in 20 minutes strict. And I'm like, that doesn't work for me. I've lived my life with a fully functioning pancreas for 20 years. So the anticipating when I'm going to eat thing is not something I am familiar with.
Yeah, right.
It changes every day. What I eat changes every day. I'm not a habitual, this is what I'm eating person. So figuring out that I could do it however I wanted and make it work was probably my biggest takeaway initially from your podcast.
Oh, I'm glad. That's excellent.
I would say from that moving forward is I just love hearing, everybody doing their own different thing.
Yeah. It can you give some context to that for me? Like, what does it do for you to hear other people just like being regular people?
I think it's, playing into my joy of being independent and just hearing. I think the first episode my mom and I listened to together in the car, it was about this young gymnast, and her mom would come in and like finger prick her during the night. And she was just starting to get older and maybe go out of town a little bit. And my mom's like, oh my God, how does she do it? When she's not there, and just all this confusion. And the more and more we listened to that episode and others, we just learned like, you just figure out how to adapt. And hearing how on your podcast different people have learned that is really cool because everyone adapts differently. So, I heard the episode with like the young sarcastic Russian girl and how her parents just ordered Dexcoms online, which I'm like, that's wild. But that's adapting. You figure out how to make things work for you. And the ways that everyone does it differently are just really cool to me. They give me ideas, or they just are fascinating. It's kind of like hearing about people who travel the world for a living.
Yeah.
It's something that I don't think I could do, but it's still really cool to hear about it and learn about it.
Mm-hmm.
And
the girl from Russia moved to America.
Really?
She's much older now. I'm going to have her back.
Yeah.
I'm going to have her back on at some point.
That's so cool.
Yeah. She was really great, wasn't she?
Yeah.
She's like,
you've had some amazing people on the podcast. My mom kept joking for like weeks that I'd be an After Dark episode.
Well, I think you have to be.
I was like, come on, like my story's not that rough. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, yeah, if I mention it at all, it's pretty much instantly.
It's tough because I don't personally think of them that way.
Yeah.
The After Dark things. I wouldn't give them a distinction.
It's more just as a kid friendly.
It just makes it like, hey, maybe look up and realize that someone's going to say heroin or something during this.
Do you want your 6-year-old listening to this?
Yeah. Like I put up one this week with a guy. It's such a sweet story. And this guy, Perry, his brother was diagnosed when his brother was like 8 months old. His brother passes away, very young. And it's a major impact on his life, obviously. And then a decade or more later, Perry's diagnosed. But Perry's like a guy who sold drugs, did drugs, was in trouble with the law, told me he was clean now. When I pushed him a little longer, he's like, well, I'm California sober. And I was like, okay, we're going along. And he was just, it was really a story about how he missed his brother.
Yeah.
But the details of it are, what they were, and his perspective was different.
For sure.
Yeah. And his perspective was different. Like when at the end of the podcast, I asked him something about like, if he was afraid of a certain drug, and he's like, nah, they're just making a big deal out of it in the media. And I was like, oh, okay.
Okay.
Fentanyl's not bad. Nah, not as bad as they make it sound. And I'm like,
good to know.
I'm like, wow, different perspective. You know what I mean? Like literally lived a completely different life than I'm aware of, but a sweet guy, and told a really touching, open story. I don't see why it has to be called After Dark California Sober, but it does, because some people would listen to that and be like, I would have skipped this if I would have known.
You see, I kind of see it as like I'm sitting in a room and there's all sorts of people there. And I'm like, I would not want to tell this exact story if there were young children there or people who could get triggered.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's how I try to think of it. So,
but I don't, but like to myself, I don't think of my own story as that until I really think about it. And I'm like, yeah, not everyone talks about suicide and self-harm all the time, Liv. It's just you. Like,
do you feel good about what we talked about, or do you feel like there's something unsaid?
I feel pretty good.
Are you worried now your mom's going to listen and go, see, you were a crap episode of this?
My mom's going to love anything I talked about. You are her hero. She has listened to, she got like one of those Spotify things that's like, you've listened to so many hours of the Juicebox podcast.
Oh, those are great for my ego. Those come out in November. Yeah.
She listens way more than I do. She listens whenever she gets a chance.
Well, hello to your mom then.
She loves everything. She loves your perspective. She loves hearing all the stories, and
I'm glad
that she has an outlet too for this thing that happened to her kid. Because I'm not very open about my.
You don't talk about it a lot with her?
I talk about it. I just, I've got it. So I don't need to be like, oh, my blood sugar's 103 right now. What should I do?
Arden is back at school, and she said she hasn't been. Arden goes back and forth when her hormones get wonked around. She can't eat meat, and she came home. She takes this stuff called Avasitol that keeps her hormones kind of balanced. It's an over-the-counter thing.
Yeah, I've heard the supplement.
And so she stopped taking it while she was home on a break because she was just like lazy. And then she started taking it again. She's like, I'm having weird reactions like to foods again. And I said, well, you probably have to just get back on this for, be steady, and I'm sure you'll feel better. She's like, so for now, I've been eating like a lot of salads and stuff. So her insulin sensitivity and I think her basal are a little too strong for her eating style at the moment.
Right.
And so she's been kind of fighting with lows a little bit while we've been fixing it. And
college is hard with diabetes.
Yeah, no kidding.
Is hard.
Yeah.
Dorm life, because you don't have a kitchen. Like I was eating crackers for half my meals when I went back, and I failed that quarter anyway. So it just did not work.
Well, last night she got lower overnight, and I sent her a text, and I said, "You're low." And she said, I know. And I said, I think you need to test because it was the first day of a CGM. And I was like, why don't you test? And she just said, Dad.
That is so me. I heard Arden's episode and I was like, that is me like 4 years ago to a T. Just the most sarcastic, snarky, amazing, go get it, you got it person.
Well, I sent her back a note that said, Mom and I are worried. It's scary to be this far away when it says that you're this low. And she said, Dad, I'm aware.
Yeah.
That was it.
I've sent so many of those. Can I ask what your low alarm is for Arden?
On my phone, it's 70.
See, my mom's is 55.
At Arden's, I think, is at 80 while she's at school. She's usually 70.
Mine's at 75. My mom's, I could not. I was like, I promise you I've got it. And if I don't, then I usually get down to 55 and she'll call me.
Yeah. Well,
but my boyfriend's on it.
Well, see, that's nice though that you have another person. And Arden has roommates who have Dexcom set at 55 for her, but they're also, they
don't get it.
They're lovely people, but they're probably not much different than the
Yeah.
people who were at the party who were like, hey, Liv is really tired. Oh, well.
She's just taking a nap.
Yeah,
it's fine.
She'll be all right.
Yeah.
So they're still kids. You know what I mean? They don't understand the whole depth of it.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Like which numbers mean coma and which numbers mean they're fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, do you want to call this episode Two Silly Guns?
I would love that.
I wish I could. I'm sorry I can't.
Oh, that's so sad. That would have been perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I think people might, I don't know. I think people would skip it, but maybe they'd be like, they just rush to it. I'd have to put a lot of asterisks in the title. There'd just be a C and an S, I think, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I wanted to do justice to your way of cursing.
Yeah.
Try calling your friends hookers once and just see what happens. Just be like, hey, what are you hookers up to today? And just breeze right past it and see how they react.
I don't know how that would go.
It was like, I don't need to get punched.
Well, I'm also not usually in groups of people, so it'd just be like, hey,
just
hooker, what's up?
Person? I don't know. I think, by the way, I think your generation is pushing past the being really offended thing. I think it's the pendulum swinging the other way a little bit.
I'm so tired
of being upset about everything because somebody told you to be.
Yeah. I get it. Like there's a lot to fight for right now, but sometimes you just got to chill because life's short and nothing matters.
Yeah.
We're so small.
I'm telling you, I think it's going the other way.
As long as you're having fun and staying healthy,
Yeah.
Everything's good.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Well, what are your goals here? Like I'm going to let you go in a second, but what are you trying to do in the world? What'd you get?
Lifetime
Yeah.
goals?
What'd you learn to do in college?
Nothing last year, except that Portland is horrible. But I
sorry, Portland.
That's a fact statement.
Okay.
It might have been cool at one point, but it's not.
Went backwards.
There's no one. It's just an empty, boarded up city with
really
horrible, horrible, terrible things happening. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You don't want to go there, but I'm in Seattle now, so it's all good.
Yeah.
You can forget about that. My goals, I'm trying to go into UX design. It's like a user interface design, so computer science type thing.
Is it going well? Do you understand it? Is it easy for you to pick up?
Well, considering I'm technically only one quarter in because of getting
Diagnosed.
diabetes.
You don't really know
so
yet.
far so good. Yeah, starting over is great. Feeling good about it this go around.
Good.
And I also hope someday I can do some tattoos on people because that's my real dream. But there's no good insurance in tattooing, and we all know I need good insurance.
Are you good? Like, are you good at it?
Well, I think I'm an okay artist, but a lot of people have my art on their body already, so
maybe that's the way you.
That's got to say something. I hope
it's a part-time job as you're learning the other stuff.
Yeah. At some point, I just got to get that insurance first, Yeah. That's my main goal.
I know, right? It's funny. There'll be an episode that goes up in a week or two with Steven, who's just an older gentleman who's just brilliant about diabetes. And he talked about how when he was younger, that was everybody he knew who had diabetes, it was their only focus was to get a job with insurance. That's pretty much what they were worried about. So
I'm definitely
in that headspace. Oh, listen, we tell Arden all the time, like, you can do whatever you want as long as it has insurance.
That's true facts.
Yeah.
Well, you want to hear my one diabetes genius thing that I have figured out?
Yeah.
It might not be accurate, but it's how I think about it.
Go ahead.
So say you have, a piece of toast that you decide not to bolus for because, you're stubborn and lazy. When your blood sugar gets high and you're sitting there and you're like, oh, I'll do a correction. That's wrong. You don't want to do that. You want to bolus for the bread plus the correction because you still ate that many carbs, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now your blood sugar is high and sticky. So you need both the amount of bread plus the correction to bring you back down.
Do you get low after you do that because the timing gets messed up or no?
I didn't on MDI, but now on the 5, since it auto corrects, it definitely will bring me low.
Yeah, because you're going up.
Because it's already dosing, So
can you look at what Omnipod 5 is put in already and then do a hybrid version?
I could, but it does it every 5 minutes or whatever. So I can't anticipate what it's going to do over that time. So now, I don't really go high too often. I don't go above 200.
Yeah. Is that about where you think of high?
No, I think of high over 150.
Okay. 200 is a spike for you?
200's if you're above 200, you gotta strap in because that's not fun. And I get really tired. I go and take a nap. Every time I go high, I get so sleepy. And I'm like, oh, it's DKA all over again.
I remember being this sleepy. Well, you have to help me a little bit. What do I name this episode? Because it's going to be after dark. Can I call it Sleepy Camel?
Oh, God. No.
Oh, look at you. Now your ego's in play. You're like, no, I don't want that. Because I can't call it what do you want? You know what I mean? Formally suicidal is not going to be good. So we've decided two silly won't make it past the people at Apple Podcasts. So what do we do?
I don't know. Sad, but not about diabetes.
Sad, but you're not good at the title thing at all. It's too long.
Neither are you.
Whoa, stop
no
it.
Offense.
I'm great at it.
You're all right. I never know what the episode's about, though. You're just like, this is a weird name. And then you're like, this person has diabetes. I'm like, that tells me literally nothing, but I'm going to listen anyways.
Well, don't you think that's part of my mad genius then?
Yeah, I suppose.
How about the other day, HbA1c? Did you love that one? Did you see that?
You got dad humor, Scott.
That's what the lady said. She kept saying my HbA1c, and I'm like, damn it, that's the title of this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I in all seriousness, you can't too specifically title them because of the random way that I talk.
Yeah, no one will know.
If you were famous, then it would just be your name.
You could call it Live Without the E.
Live Without the E.
Because everyone tries to spell it with an E, but
I don't know. Don't you think they're going to see a Like a play
you can honestly call it whatever you want. I don't really have a huge preference.
Can I call it live, almost die, repeat? No.
That would be hilarious.
That was a movie, right? Live, die, repeat?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. See, there's a problem here because you have to be sensitive. I'm just going to call it live. Because maybe that's appropriate. Because that's what you're doing, right?
Yeah. You can call it live _in. Livin'.
What if I do it like this? LIV and then in brackets I put the E.
Yeah.
No, you didn't like
I mean,
that.
that's why I named myself Liv. My legal name's not Odessa. I mean, it's not Liv, it's Odessa. Oh. And I named myself Liv after I got out of the hospital. So every time someone says my name, they're reminding me to keep living.
Well, that's a great idea. Yeah. One of my daughter's best friend's name is Olivia, and I say Liv a lot. But can I do that? What do you think? LIV and then put the E in like little brackets? Great. All right, that's what I'm doing. Okay, we're done. We figured the whole thing out.
I have one question though.
All right, before you ask the question,
okay, yeah.
Can I say I think I might start discussing the titles at the end with the people because I go back to edit them and I'm like, what the am I going to call this?
Yeah, I think that's a good plan.
I'm going to do that. All right, you have a question. Oh, do I get to answer it?
Yeah.
All right, I'm ready.
If you can, I mean, it's kind of an arbitrary thing, but I just went in to get my A1C. Mm-hmm. I have 5.5.
Nice.
Which sounds great, but you know, Clarity's like, bitch, I don't think so. It says I'm at like a 6.6 area.
How long have you been on the 5? Omnipod 5. How long have you been on it?
At least 3 months.
What was your A1C before the Omnipod 5?
It was also low. It was definitely below like a 6.2.
Showing your age here, Liv. Like you're young. You're like, I don't remember what that was 6 months ago. Leave me alone. So you were 6.2. It says 5.5 now. Clarity thinks it's higher. My first thought would be just go 3 more months and look again to see if Clarity and
so I've had 2. It was
match.
5.4 and now it's 5.5. Both times Clarity says like 6.6 is just 0.7. And my endo said that maybe I have an iron thing or whatever. All the blood tests came back fine.
What's your ferritin level?
My what?
Ferritin? It's part of the iron test.
Ferritin, I don't know, but it's normal. Like all of the ones were in range except my blood sugar.
Okay, so in range for iron is kind of arbitrary. So they'll tell you like between, I don't know. Hold on a second. Are you going to make me Google? That's all right. We'll do it together. They'll tell you that a normal range for blood ferritin for men, for example, is 24 to 36 to like 336.
Oh my
For
goodness.
women, it's 11 to 307. If your ferritin is 11, you're going to fall over, especially if you're of what they call menstruating age. Let's see. I've had doctors on that said that they would treat a 70 ferritin as low. And your doctor's point is that low iron could throw off the A1C test and make it look lower than it is. Was that your doctor's point?
Yeah.
And
because he was like, I don't believe it.
Also, Clarity's not doing an A1C. It's doing what the hell do they call it?
Something.
GMI?
Yeah.
See if we can figure that out.
Which I know is different, but I mean, like looking at my average glucose, it does not match a 5.5.
Mm-hmm. So then,
I'm like, am I just pretending?
Yeah. So then, what I'm saying is that maybe you should look harder at your iron. Hold on, ferritin range A1C. I don't want to say anything. Influence of iron deficiency anemia on hemoglobin A1C. Reading. Scanning with his eyes. Also, being a little anemic and having some of the other issues you have would not be unreasonable.
I mean, my mom is anemic, so I wouldn't be surprised.
What's your TSH when you get your thyroid done? Do you know?
My TSH right now is 1.89, and I am off the levothyroxine. So
really,
apparently I'm cured. Yeah, that happened a while ago. I don't take it anymore.
That's funky. Did they tell you had hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's?
We have never been actually diagnosed with Hashimoto's, but considering all the other, like, what do you call that? Autoimmune stuff, I would assume.
So,
but
are you still tired a lot?
I sleep a lot, but I'm not like.
When you sleep, do you feel rested when you're done?
As long as I have coffee.
That's a no, Liv.
I'm not great with the sleep.
I think.
Not where I used to be.
Hematologist.
Hematologist?
Yeah, it's a blood doctor. Normally they help people. There are going to be a lot of cancer patients in this office, but go to a hematologist, excuse me, and tell them your mom is anemic, you have type 1 diabetes, and your energy is low and your A1C is reporting falsely low.
Okay.
And ask him if he would,
or her.
See,
PC
this is the fucking trouble I get into, Liv. I am just trying to have a conversation. I don't think that women can't be hematologists or, by the way, trans people or anyone else, right? It just occurs to me to say
I'm
him.
Just yanking your chain.
No, Liv, now we got to talk about it. When I picture a doctor in my head, I picture my doctor. That's all.
Who's a man.
Yes.
And who has always been a man.
I don't know.
And
honestly,
makes more money than all the other women.
Can I be honest? I don't know if my hematologist has always been a man. I've never asked him. But what I can tell you is that if he was if he was a woman, just now I would have said she, because I have a very simple brain.
I'm literally just kidding.
I'm just joking.
I know you mean the best.
Yeah. Please, actually, you know what? Intention, very important. Now, anyway, I would tell this person, this doctor,
yes,
that if your ferritin level is under 70, just ask him if he would consider giving you an iron infusion.
Are you saying ferritin or ferritin?
I don't know. What is this, like a West Coast, East Coast fight we're having?
F or TH?
F.
I'm F? Okay.
Ferritin.
Okay, well.
Also, in other like inflammatory markers can impact your A1C response too in the test. So my point is that you want to know, you think maybe you're seeing your A1C reporting back incorrectly, and you want to make sure that it's not a function of anemia of some kind.
Right. And
if your levels are and tell them you're tired all the time and you need caffeine to function. And because if you can get your insurance to give you one infusion of iron, the next time your body makes red blood cells with that new iron rich blood, you are going to turn back on, and then you're going to know that was the case, and then you can look into ways to address it without the infusion. Because if he tells you take an iron supplement, that's because you're menstruating, that may never catch you back up. So,
or I could just eat liver for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I guess that's what they did in the 50s.
All
right. That's it. I'm not a doctor. This isn't advice. Good luck.
Medical advice or otherwise.
Or otherwise, Liv. You were not like talking to a person your age.
What do you mean? Oh, you mean, yeah, because I'm young?
Yeah, it felt like you don't feel your age.
Yeah, I've been told that many times.
I had a nice...
It's the trauma, Scott.
It's the trauma. Ages you right up 10 years. Boom.
It really does.
I know.
I'm telling you.
Okay, so if somebody's acting really like childish, should I just dangle them off a bridge for a minute by their ankles? You think that pulls them around?
Slap some sense into them.
That's what they used to do in the 40s.
Yep, yeah. And it worked.
Well, I don't know if it worked or not, but they definitely used to do it. You just can't thank Liv enough for coming on the show and being so honest and open with everybody. Thank you so very much, Liv. And thank you to Omnipod for sponsoring this and so many other episodes of the Juicebox Podcast. Omnipod.com/Juicebox. You get to hear a lot of these stories because of the great sponsors. Please support them when you can. If you're looking for community, find the Juicebox Podcast on Facebook. Juicebox Podcast Type 1 Diabetes is a private Facebook group with 40,000 people in it. Sorry, I needed a drink. It doesn't matter what kind of diabetes you have to me. Type 2, type 1, LADA, gestational. You're the parent of somebody, a grandparent, an adult living with. I don't care what you eat. I don't care how you live. You're welcome there. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be back very soon with another episode of the Juicebox Podcast. Please subscribe or follow in an audio app like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, all the podcast apps, wherever you do it, like wherever you listen, just please subscribe.